Chin hair, acne, belly fat, low confidence. The world may tell you that there's something wrong with you, but truly, these are messages from testosterone, and today we're decoding them. Welcome back to another episode of Hormones Don't Lie. Today we're diving in and talking all about testosterone. We're going to talk about when your testosterone is too high, when your testosterone is too low, and when your testosterone is just right. Welcome to the She Sacral podcast, where we help women recover from hormonal burnout. If you're new, I'm your host, Lindsay Christian, Hormonal Burnout Recovery Guide for Women. So let's talk a little bit more about the meaning of the word testosterone. Testosterone is really broken down into two parts. Test, which comes from the Latin root word testis, which means to bear witness. And then the suffix sterone, which simply just means steroid hormone. So literally, the word translated from testosterone means the hormone that bears witness. Now, once I dive into what this really means, it's all going to make perfect sense to you. So let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about what it means to bear witness. It means to see something. What have you seen? But not just what you see. What has left an impression on you? How has life tested you? So when we think of it from that perspective, whenever we see something, typically there's something that follows after that, which is what? An action. And so when testosterone is balanced, it gives us this energy of taking action, being driven, feeling confident, feeling assertive. Because when you pass life's test, that naturally makes you feel more confident. So let's understand the nature of testosterone even a little bit more by understanding what it does in the brain. In our previous episode about estrogen, we talked about how it stimulates the emotional parts of your brain, the limbic system. But testosterone triggers the part of the brain for action and direction. First is going to be your prefrontal cortex, which is all about motivation, clarity, and decision making. This is pretty much your I know what I need to do energy. Then it also stimulates another part of the brain called the basal ganglia. This is your drive, momentum, consistency. And this is your ability to start and to keep going. But when testosterone is too high, it overstimulates your amygdala. This is the part where the short fuse, the anger, and the irritability often shows up. But testosterone also stimulates your dopamine pathways, where you are able to feel rewarded and have confidence. So testosterone will help you to feel more proud of yourself. So let's talk a little bit more about how testosterone is created and how it's produced. Testosterone is often activated when we lift weights, when we get plenty of sunlight, when we eat plenty of protein. When you think about the ancient design of our bodies, we did not have gyms. We were outside in the sun and we were handling what life was throwing at us. Usually it was something physical. Maybe there was a tree log that was blocking our path of where we needed to go, and you have to lift that tree log. So testosterone is like, okay, I'm going to get activated because we're handling the challenges that are being thrown our way. We're having to build our home. We're having to hunt and carry the game on our shoulders. That is why testosterone gets activated when we are lifting the weights, because we are handling the challenges that life is throwing at us. But now we've kind of become separated from that whole like nature, outdoorsy, building type of energy. I mean, some people are still there, but it's not as frequent. So we use the gym to kind of simulate that energy of building it so we get the same effect, but we're kind of missing that mental piece where we are able to strategize and think through things and use logic and use reason with how we're going to handle this challenge. You just start picking up the weights and going. So sometimes that testosterone is almost a little bit incomplete, if you will, but we're still able to build it. You know, when we look at estrogen builds, it accumulates, and then it has to be cleared. But testosterone is a little bit different. Testosterone kind of sees what's going on in your life, and then it's converted into different forms of that hormone. So testosterone is converted into estrogen. And that's basically saying, hey, if we're not using that testosterone, if we're not super active, if we're not taking action, then testosterone is like, okay, I'll be converted over into estrogen. When testosterone is really high, that means that it's going to be converted into something called DHT. When we look at DHT, that's what really gives us the uncomfortable symptoms, the belly fat, the acne, the chin hair, the hair loss, all of that we just don't want when it comes to testosterone. So you might be asking, well, how are we getting this DHT? Like, what's going on with that? This is where the whole idea of bearing witness to what's going on in your life really kicks in. So one of the ways that testosterone gets converted into DHT is when our insulin is out of balance. So when you think of the word insulin, you're probably thinking of sugar. Whenever we eat a lot of sugar, sometimes that can cause for our insulin to go into overdrive, and everybody talks about insulin resistance and things of that nature. So with insulin, it's not necessarily about sugar per se, it's really about how your body is using energy. And insulin can become unstable even with just stress. So when you're really stressed out, your body actually releases sugar into your bloodstream because it's trying to give you quick energy to handle whatever life is challenging you with. So every time you feel stressed or you feel angry or you feel a reaction, that insulin's going to spike. And then it's going to crash. What would be making your insulin spike like that so much and so frequently? That's the part that I'm actually way more interested in than just all of the sciencey stuff. When you wake up, what's the first thing you do in the morning? Do you roll over and check your phone and check your Instagram? Are you just drowning your mind in all of these things that you don't know what's going to come up on that screen, and you don't have any way to prepare for it? You don't know if it's going to be something disturbing, if it's going to be something happy, if it's going to be something sad. We're kind of just opening ourselves up to having to be reactive. Or maybe you start your day off in a rush, in a panic, and then from there, how does the rest of the day look? Do you have a lot of demands? Do you have a lot of things that's causing you to have to react on a regular, consistent basis? That every single time you react, your body is releasing sugar. And every time that insulin becomes unstable, testosterone says, oh, we're in overdrive. We got to be in protective mode. We're really out of the space of being confident and handling life. We need to actually be super protective right now so they can handle what is happening. And so you're like, well, where are all these symptoms coming from? Where I'm getting this acne and these chin hair? Like, what is the point of this? So let's slow down a little bit and let's think of the location of where we're getting all of this. When you look at the chin, right, the jawline, this is very sensitive to testosterone. And this is why men have beards, right? But they would grow the beards because in times of battle, in times of fighting, this would be an area that would get punched a lot. So to protect the face, it grows the hair. And it grows the hair coarser to create a level of protection on the face. The same thing goes with the oils on your skin. Because testosterone says, okay, well, now that I'm witnessing what is happening right now, then it says we need to produce oil. Now, the oil that our bodies create is like a very waxy substance, which is meant to kind of naturally waterproof the skin to handle the elements of what's going on. But when that hormone is so stimulated and so activated, the oil goes into overdrive. So now the oil is clogging the pores, creating the acne. And then we can end up getting the belly fat. Why? Because the belly is a very vulnerable area. This is where you have a lot of organs. Because testosterone is saying, okay, I'm seeing what we're going through. We need to add this protection here. We want to protect these organs. These are vital. It's going to tell the body to add that extra layer of fat to that area. So I bet you're wondering, what about the hair thinning? Hair is very expensive with how many nutrients it needs. And because our body is in a protective state, DHT tells the body to shift the nutrients to what is most important. DHT will thicken the skin on the scalp, shrink the follicles, and reduce the blood flow that would be supporting more hair growth to protect your brain. So it's just a whole thing. When you really look at it from that perspective, it's like, oh, it's kind of trying to make me be this little like warrior, but it's not giving me like real warrior vibes. You know what I mean? It's just making me look trollish. So it can be very frustrating for a lot of women. For me, this is something that I would even struggle with, where I started getting chin hair like back to back after the pandemic. And when I think about it, there was so much uncertainty, so many unknowns, so many different like things coming at me that I had to react to, so many different shifts, that it really rocked my sense of stability. And I remember just thinking in my mind, well, maybe I should get laser hair removal, and seeing how super expensive it was and how I wouldn't be able to afford it. And even if I did afford it, because my skin tone is on the darker side, it could burn my skin because it's going based off of finding the pigment to get rid of the hair. And I was like, that's not a risk I'm willing to take. I'd rather just pluck my little 15 chin hairs and keep it moving. But it started to really wear down on my confidence because it just started to scar my skin, and it felt very uncomfortable. And I did not know how to handle it. I didn't know how to work with my body in that state. Looking up all this stuff about taking spearmint and, all these things to lower your androgens and saw palmetto. So while all these things are great, it doesn't get down to the root cause that's going to get rid of the issue. The issue was that I didn't feel stable. The issue was that I felt out of control of what was happening in my life. The issue was that I felt so reactive, but I didn't have the answers to be able to confidently handle what life was testing me on. And so it put me in a state of overprotection. It's also pointing to the fact that maybe our boundaries are weaker. Boundaries within ourselves, how much we can really handle, the capacity of the things that we have to handle. And also setting boundaries with others. Saying, hey, I have too much. I can't take on anymore. A lot of times this is coming from a space of not feeling in control and trying to control all of these things around us that makes us so reactive. Now, you might be listening and you might be saying, okay, I'm getting it now. But what happens when my testosterone is too low? When you follow through, when you take small steps, that testosterone naturally rises. But when you're overwhelmed and you're not feeling supported, it crashes. And just like estrogen, testosterone requires having enough cholesterol to be built. So this is why being nourished and feeling supported has to be available first. So when we're experiencing low levels of testosterone, typically we are emotionally overwhelmed. We have too many decisions to make. We are experiencing burnout, and we're in a space of shutting down. The body is really saying to you or communicating that something has overwhelmed you so much to the point that maybe you feel like you can't respond. Has something happened in your life where maybe you experienced grief, or you experienced betrayal, or you experienced something that blindsided you that you felt like you had no way of even being able to respond or react? There could have even been a trauma. There could have been a job loss. There could have been something that was so overwhelming for you that you just lost your ability to respond to it. And so if that has happened to you, then the next step is to rebuild the testosterone back up by starting small and getting those small wins and not taking on the responsibility of things that are not yours. when you get to a point of having a condition, that's when the body has been in that state for a very long period of time. And that's coming from years of being in this space. And so many women don't realize how long and how much they've been carrying this heavy energy. You have to really take this time to look through, when did your symptoms first start? And that's going to give you so much more information and so much of a clue to see what was that big pivotal piece in your life that started to create all of these symptoms. But it could have started from your childhood, especially if you grew up in chaotic environments or in a very reactive space, or there was a lack of stability and you didn't know how to handle those situations that will come up for you, even as a little girl. You know, sometimes we can have these beliefs because we've had symptoms for so long that we've convinced ourselves that it's like, oh, it's just my genes, or my body's just malfunctioning, or, you know, hey, even my mom had this experience, or my sister had this experience. So it's just genetics. It's not really anything that serious. But I want you to be really honest with yourself. Do you really truly feel like you've had stability? Do you really truly feel like you can handle what life is putting on your shoulders right now? Do you really feel safe with allowing for other people to support you and help you? Does that feel comfortable for you? So I think that it just requires for us to look a lot deeper into ourselves and to see where we can give ourselves that protection and stability so that our body doesn't have to do it for us. So now that we've truly taken this time to break down testosterone, we know that testosterone does not lie. It shows you where you're grounded, and it shows you where you are overwhelmed. It reveals when you're acting and responding from a space of strength and when you're reacting from fear and survival. So your body is always communicating with you. We just have to learn our body's messages. So this concludes our episode on testosterone. Be sure to follow and subscribe because up next, we're going to dive in and talk all about progesterone.